Good morning, everyone. Mazel Tov again on the Siyum. You should have now a little booklet with the cover page that looks like this. Avodas Yom HaKippurim. Lakov Achrei HaKohen Gadol Bebeis HaMikdash Yibona B'mher V'Yemeinu Omei. We're going to make believe we're following the Kohen Gadol through the Beis HaMikdash that we just learned about for the last 7, 8 weeks or so. And that's the basic diagram that we use. That's not the famous diagram 3. That was just diagram 2. And it gives you, without the Har Habayis, it gives you the Ezras, the Chayil, the Soreg, the Chayil, Ezras Noshim, 15 steps, Shar Nikanor, the Azorah, Mizbeach, the 12 steps to the Ulam, the Heichel, and the Kodesh Kodashim. And we're going to follow the Kohen Gadol through the Beis HaMikdash, through the Avodas Yom HaKippurim, which we say in Musaf on Yom Kippur, and hopefully we'll develop a new appreciation for the Avodas Yom Kippur. We'll develop an appreciation for what we learned. We're now going to take the structure that we just built, and we're going to see how the Kohen Gadol walked through it and did the Avodah Yom Kippur. In the Avodas Yom Kippur, in your Machzor, which is reprinted in this little booklet, there are 2 versions to the Avodas Yom Kippur of the Kohen Gadol. One is Nusach Ashkenaz and one is Nusach Sfard. I'm not talking about Nusach Edus Mizrach, nor about the standard, what we call the Ashkenaz and the Sfard. And there are 2 different Nuschois in the Machzor. Nusach Ashkenaz Machzor will have the Avodah Lafi Nusach Ashkenaz, obviously, and a Nusach Sfard Machzor will have Lafi Nusach Sfard. I've used the Nusach Sfard. That's the Machzor that I use, and that's the one that was handy, and that's the one that I've used in previous years when we've learned about the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. In your booklet, the very first page, I reprinted our beloved diagram number 3. With the Beis HaMikdash, Ezras Noshim, Azorah, Heichel, etc. Before we actually go into the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, we're going to take a look at some background material about the Avodah of Yom Kippur and what is it that the Kohen Gadol's Avodah is meant to do. So in our minds, we have a simple idea. The Kohen Gadol is working to be mechaper, to atone and get a slicha, get a forgiveness for all the averos that he did, that his family did, that Klal Yisrael did. We're going to take a much deeper look at exactly what he's doing on Yom Kippur before the technical details of which korban where and where he was walking and what he was doing, just to get an idea of what exactly Yom Kippur is there for, in a more analytical way. In other words, this basic idea, it's there to forgive sins. It's there to atone for sins. We're going to take a more in-depth look at that idea. And one particular idea is going to be quite startling about what the Kohen Gadol is trying to accomplish on Yom Kippur. Tomorrow, you'll have another handout, which will be the Rambam, Maimonides, in the first chapter of Hilchas Avodas Yom HaKippurim, and he will summarize for us basic ideas of what is happening on Yom Kippur in the Beis HaMikdash. He'll give us a little history lesson about the second Beis HaMikdash. We'll take a look at that Bli Neder tomorrow as we get into the Avodah. But before we get into the Avodah, we're going to talk about the page Aleph in your handout is a Pachad Yitzchak that comes from Yom Kippurim, the Pachad Yitzchak on Yom Kippur, Maimur Chaf Gimel, and Siman Gimel. At the Siyum on Masechta Midos, again, I want to thank everybody for coming and partaking. It was a very, very special Siyum to do it in the middle of everything else that's going on in the world. To make a Siyum Masechta Midos was special personally for me. And now we're going to take a look at Pachad Yitzchak on Yom Kippur, Maimur Chaf Gimel. Obviously, when we talk about Yom Kippur, we're talking about a kapara for sins. Now, what is kapara for sins? Does it mean that the Ribono Shel Olam says you can move forward now? Is it that he's cleaning you up from the previous year and previous deeds and previous acts? Is it that the Ribono Shel Olam is holding last year in abeyance and is letting you move forward? What exactly is Yom Kippur? So we many times think of Yom Kippur as, I want to get a kapara for last year, and with the kapara that I get for last year, God's going to wipe the slate clean, and now I'm going to move forward l'shana tova umasuka. And that's the way we think of Yom Kippur. Now, the Gemara in Yuma tells us that there are two different ways that tshuva can be done. One way is tshuva, and then the two ways sprout into many other ways. One way is tshuva me'ava. A person does tshuva out of love for the Ribono Shel Olam. In other words, the engine, the motivation is his love for the Ribono Shel Olam and his realization that he's done something against the Ribono Shel Olam who he loves. He's done something against a beloved Ribono Shel Olam. And he wants to do tshuva me'ava. He's not scared of some kind of punishment. I just want to do tshuva me'ava. I love the Ribono Shel Olam. I did something that he didn't want me to do. And from that ava, I want to do tshuva. Superficial. In that kind of tshuva, the Gemara tells us that zdonos nasis kizachuyos. The averis that you did b'meizid, intentionally. You did something you shouldn't do intentionally. And now, because of the love that you have for the Ribono Shel Olam, you realize that it was a terrible thing that you did. You intentionally did something the Ribono Shel Olam told you not to do. We're not talking now about pshoyim. Pshoyim are a different thing. A chet, the word chet in Lashon Torah means unintentional act. A Zodon, a b'meiz, it means you did something intentionally. You fell to your desire, you knew it was wrong, and you did it. A pesha is, you know it's wrong, and it's not just desire that motivates you to do it. It's a merida. You actually want to revolt against God and show God that he's not your boss and that you're the boss of your own life. That's called a pesha. And when we say vidui, there's Yom Kippur, Chatasi, Avisi, Pashati. Chet, Avon, Pesha. I did things unintentionally. I did things intentionally. And I did things simply to revolt against God, which is, hopefully none of us does that. But nevertheless, we are misvadeh. The Lashon of Vidui is Chatasi, Avisi, Pashati. So the Gemara tells us that if you do tshuva me'ava, you're motivated by love. The zdonos, the intentional sins, nasas kischuyos. The intentional sin now becomes a merit. It means that that what you did last year, you're standing on Yom Kippur, or doesn't have to be Yom Kippur, but we're dealing with Yom Kippur. A person does tshuva anytime, me'ava. So that intentional act that he did, knowing that God doesn't want you to do it, and you did it anyways, you fell to your desire, you do tshuva me'ava, that act that you did, that was an intentional act that God told you not to do, becomes now a merit. You get a shtickle olam haba for it. Okay, I'll say that again. The Gemara in Yuma says that if someone does tshuva me'ava, zedoinas nasas loikis huyos. If someone does tshuva and the motivation for the tshuva is ava, his love for the Ribono Shel Olam, the zodoi, the intentional act he did, becomes a mitzvah. The Gemara used the word zechuyos. It's a merit. And for merit, from the Aveira that you were about to go to Gehenna for or about to suffer for, now that Aveira through the Tshuva Me'ava becomes something that's a merit. It's a ganz geschmacka thing. You get Olam Haba for this. How can you turn something around? It's already been done. You did something b'mezid, and now through Tshuva Me'ava, retroactively, you're going to turn that very deed into a zchus, a merit. On the other hand, the Gemara says some people do tshuva miyira. They do tshuva out of fear of God. It could be fear from his awesomeness. It could be fear you're scared of being punished. Different motivation than ava. If a person does tshuva miyira, zoynes nasis loy kishkagis. If a person does tshuva out of fear, then those acts that he did b'mezid intentionally because he felt a desire, the tshuva now undoes that and makes it as if it was done unintentionally. So it drops at a level. So tshuva me'ava, out of love, takes the original aveira b'mezid and makes it a zchus, a merit. Tshuva miyira takes that aveira that was done b'mezid and lowers it one level and makes it a shogeg, an unintentional act. At any rate, the whole concept of tshuva is I want to be able to go back and be able to change something that I've done. I want the Rebbeinu Shalom to forgive me for what I've done. Now, we're not talking about a human forgiveness. And when Mesilas Yesharim talks about the different levels of a person in kas, etc., people, we forgive people for doing things to us. The question is, how deep does that forgiveness go? I'm willing to be his friend again. I'm willing to talk to him again. What strength, what ability does a human being actually have to undo that which was actually done to him and to have no sense whatsoever inside him that the person ever did this to him? He completely undoes any feelings of anger, disappointment because of what someone did to him. It's a question of levels of how deep forgiveness can go on the human level. When the Rebbeinu Shalom is mechaper, at the ultimate level of kapara, we see that it's not just that the Rebbeinu Shalom says, all right, we can now continue into a new year. The Rebbeinu Shalom is ready to go back retroactively and undo what you've done and take a zodon and make it a zchus, if it's tshuva me'ava, or take a zodon and make it a shogeg, if it's tshuva miyira. And that's what we want to do when we do tshuva, especially we do tshuva on Yom Kippur. We want to start with a clean slate. We don't want something on the slate, but we'll hold it in abeyance and we'll let you move on. We want the slate to be clean with the Rebbeinu Shalom. We want to clean. Now, there's a question here, how do you ever get a slate clean with the Rebbeinu Shalom? Ata zoicha kol ha'mishkachos, we say it Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. The Rebbeinu Shalom remembers everything. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't forget anything. So the idea that the Rebbeinu Shalom is mechaper, he forgives us, and it's as if we never did anything, we cannot say that the Rebbeinu Shalom allows himself to forget, because we don't talk in those terms. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't forget. So what exactly does that mean for us, not for Rebbeinu Shalom? We don't talk in the metzias of the Rebbeinu Shalom, as we've mentioned many times, but what does it mean for us when we talk about the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to go and change something that's happened? We're going to go into a time machine, back to the future. Right? We're going to back to the future, as they used to call it. We're going to go into a time machine. We're going to go back, and we're going to undo something that we've done. So I'll give you a little introduction to the Pachad Yitzchak. A person makes a neder. He takes an oath. There's a difference between a neder and a shvuah. We're not going to get into the technical differences between neder and a shvuah. Is a gavra, is a chefza. There are technical differences. and they're not the same thing. A vow, an oath, whatever English word you want to attribute to it, but they're not the same thing, and neder and a shvua are two different things. Person makes a neder, and the neder is apples are prohibited upon me. And just for the 1 second technicality, a shavua would be, I swear I will not eat apples. So it's about the I swear I will not eat apples. That's a basic shavua. A neder is apples are prohibited on me. So the subject now becomes the apples. Be that as it may, a person makes a neder and says, apples are prohibited upon me. And he uses the correct technical terms. He now is not allowed to eat apples. He then goes and he eats apples. Not good. Whatever the isser is, whatever his punishment is, it is. He then goes to a chacham after he ate the apples, and he does hataras nedarim through a chacham. And I'm giving you a very superficial example. He goes and does hataras nedarim through a chacham. And he does it with a kind of pesach that the chacham, by talking to him, the person says, if I would have known this, I would have never made the neder. So the chacham says, mutalach, mutalach, mutalach. The neder is now off. When the chacham does that, a chacham is oike a neder lamafreya. A chacham undoes the vow or the oath retroactively, which means it's as if the person never, ever said, apples are prohibited upon me. It's if he never uttered the word. So what we call an annulment. It's a retroactive annulment. So since he never said those words, at the time he ate from the apples, it was okay. He was allowed to eat from the apples because he never, ever said, apples are prohibited on me. You go back in time, and he never said the word. So when he ate from the apples, it's as if they were permissible apples because he never uttered the words of the vow. That's a chacham oike neder lemafreya. If it's not a chacham, if it's, for example, a man being mefer the oath or vows of his wife, or a father being mefer the oath or vows of a daughter at a certain age, it wouldn't have that halacha. It would be from this day going forward, there is no vow. From this day going forward, there is no oath, and what you've done till now, you're responsible for. So if a wife made an oath, a neder, and she said, apples are prohibited on me. Again, complicated halachas. Can a husband be mefer apples? It has to be devorim shebeinai lebein ishtar, without going into all the technicalities. The woman said, apples are also on me. And she eats apples. And the husband, within the 24-hour period permitted to be mefer, he says, the vow is off. Mufa, mufa, mufa. She still is going to have the consequences of eating of those apples. Going forward, she can eat apples. But what she did before her husband said, muffa, 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 she has the consequences of violating an oath. Because the husband can't go back retroactively and undo what she said. His power of hafora is mikan haba from now going forward. Chacham goes back in time, and it's as if you never said what you said. So here our footnote explains as follows with that explanation on page Aleph of the little booklet that we're using. Mitzuya ma'od b'sifrei Maharal hi hamemra siluk hagashi. In the works of the Maharal, in the Sfarim of the Maharal, we find different Sfarim, and with different subjects, he talks about siluk hagashmi, removing yourself from the physical world. Siluk, sort of ending, working outside gashmi, working outside the physical world. V'gam b'nesiv hatshuva shalohu omer kein ala tshuva. In the Maharal's work called Nesiv HaTshuva, the Path of Tshuva, he uses those two words as well. Ki hatshuva hi sila kagash. The Maharal says that to do tshuva, you have to remove yourself from the physical world. If you want to enter the world of tshuva, you have to somehow disassociate yourself from the pure physical confines of the world, because the two will not go together. Even though these words sila gashmi are used by the Maharal for many different messages, mikol makom he's pareshus v'chol makom lefi inyanim. Nevertheless, every time the Maharal uses this language in his different svarim, sila gashmi, removing yourself from the physical world, whenever he uses that, you have to understand it in the context of the specific subject he's using it in. And when the Maharal says sila gashmi, disassociate yourself from the physical world and enter the world of tshuva, there's a special meaning to the word sila gashmi, disassociate yourself from the physical world and enter the world of tshuva. It has a special meaning in the context of tshuva. Before we continue, I have a note that I had on the side, and I apologize. Just saw the note again. Today's shir is dedicated Le'ilui Nishmas, Fega Esther Bas Meir Zechrona Livracha, Fega Esther Bas Meir Zechrona Livracha, Shmuel Bat, great-grandmother. She should have an Aliyas Neshama, and she should be a Meilitz Yosher for all of us and for Klal Yisrael. So the word Sila Gashmi means something special. Disassociate yourself from the physical world in order to enter the world of tshuva means something specifically in the context of tshuva. Since we are here in the parsha of tshuva, what I'm going to do, Rafutna says, is explain to you what it means to disassociate yourself from the physical world and enter the world of tshuva means, specifically as used by the Maharal in the context of tshuva. This is going to be the most basic understanding of what we're trying to do through tshuva and what the Kohen Gadol is trying to do on Yom Kippur as he walks through the Beis HaMikdash to get a kapara for us for Yom Kippur. Kodem kol aleinu ladash shechilek hagashmi. First of all, you need to know, Rafutna says, that when the Maharal uses the word Sila Gashmi, remove yourself, disassociate yourself from the world of Gashmi, Aladah shel tshuva hinemeres. It's talking about the das, your understanding, your mental attitude towards tshuva. Sila Gashmi in other contexts may mean eat less, remove yourself, disassociate yourself from the physical world. Less food, less indulging in olam hazeh. That could mean sila gashmi in other contexts. When we're dealing with tshuva, sila gashmi means you're going to have to change your mental status. Whereas you're always thinking, your brain is operating in the physical world, your brain is going to have to change a bit in order to enter the world of tshuva. So in order to do tshuva, understand tshuva, we're not talking about less food now, sila kagashmi. We're talking about that mundane, day-to-day brain, that the way the brain thinks and processes information is going to have to change in order to be able to process and understand tshuva. V'kavanasa lahashmi enu kiyada shel tshuva. And what the Maharal is telling us is the understanding of tshuva, musulekes hi min hagashmi. It is completely removed and disassociated from the mundane physical world. Ki al kain, because b'metzias hamuchashes, in the physical world of senses, touch, hear, see, smell, taste, in that physical world, Bal Yera u Bal Yemotze, that's just poetic, Rafutna being poetic. By Pesach it says, Bal Yero, Bal Yimotzi, you shall not see it, you shall not find chametz. It's meaning that it shouldn't be anywhere around. So in this pure physical world, shum pa'ula chozes v'chol mafreya. There is no such thing as going back retroactively. It can't be done in the pure physical world. If you eat something and it's giving you indigestion, you can take something that will help you indigestion for going forward for the next couple of hours. It'll relieve the indigestion. But there's nothing that you can do that will, I guess people can induce vomiting. I don't know if that'll get rid of indigestion. But there's nothing you can do to undo what you've done. In other words, I'm going to do something and it will be, the result will be that I never even ate this thing. In the physical world, you see something, you can try to forget what you saw, but you cannot go back and completely eliminate the fact that you once saw it. You can't go back retroactively in time. Going back retroactively in time is, something that movies are made out of, the time machine. We can go back in time. But in the real physical world, there's past, present, and future, and you can't go back. So that's the world of Gashmi. In the world of Gashmi, the Maral is telling us, there's no going backwards in time. You can only deal with the present and move forward in the future. Hachush eina masugal litbos ela pa'ula mikanu lahaba. The physical world of the senses only understands, and that's how the brain processes information today and going forward. The whole idea of going into a retroactive state is a musag mufshat. It is sort of an intellectual idea. It's not something that you can concretize and actually feel it with your senses. It's a mufshat. It's an intellectual idea that you can talk about, theorize about, but you can't live it in the pure physical world. Hamusak shalom afreya nolad b'seichel. The idea of something happening retroactively is only in a person's seichel. It's only something we can think about and theorize about. Excuse me. It's only something that you can think about and theorize about. That's the place where the concept lives. It lives in your seichel. In your seichel, in your mind, you can theorize about a time machine. If I went backwards in history, what would the world look like? What would I look like? But no one's going back in history. Underline, underline, which is what we started our discussion about. Since the ikka work of tshuva is to fix something retroactively, I don't want what I've done held in abeyance in some way, although there are certain halachas in tshuva where if tshuva is not completed, things are held in abeyance. But what I'm looking for is a completely new slate. וכיוון שעיקר פעולתו של התשובה היא התיקון למפרע, ותיקון בזה אין לו שום מושג ודוגמה במציאות המוקשס. This whole idea of tshuva is I want to go back in time, I want to undo something, and I want my slate to be completely clean. Tikkun למפרע, מוציא את האדם מחולו של המציאות המוקשס. Therefore, entering the world of tshuva, the Maharal is saying, according to our footnote, you're entering the world of tshuva. Now you're going to have to change the way you think, because the way you think, the brain processes things we see, things we smell, things we taste, things we touch, things we hear. The brain processes that which our senses bring into it. We need to, the Maharal says, free ourselves or disassociate ourselves from that physical world to go into a different world, a higher world, that one can go actually back in time, which the senses can't do. This is an intellectual process at this point, and I want to go back in time and get a clean slate. V'osa hadas hakrucha v'hama'ura b'havchonas hamatzia hamochshis mufkas hi legami masoras hachozen shel tikkun l'mafreya. And the life that we live and all the senses that we have completely contradict the world of tshuva. So therefore, the Maharal says, or Footnote explains, that when you want to open the doors, haposeach shar l'dofkei b'tshuva, we say on Rosh Hashanah, God opens the doors to those who knock on the door of tshuva. When you knock on the door of tshuva, you're going to walk into this this new path called tshuva. You're going to have a brain reset where you're actually going to say to yourself, I'm in a higher world that's beyond the senses, which leave me only in a world of today and tomorrow. I'm now entering a world where I can go back into the past and work through my past. I'm not talking about here now therapy. I'm talking about a person is able to go back in his past and through this Olam HaTshuva correct something that he did before, whether it's through love of the Ribono Shel Olam or through fear of the Ribono Shel Olam, and completely undo something that he has done. And then Rav Hutner explains what we started with, the halacha about neder, that a chacham can be oker a neder l'mafreya. Chacham can undo a vow retroactively as if you never said it. So there is this power in the world that the Ribono Shel Olam gave through the Torah that says that if you're in the world of Torah, the Ribono Shel Olam gives you the power to go back in time and undo something as if it never happened. Bottom of the page, Daled. V'zehu peshet v'hasmichu shel birchas hatshuva lebirchas hadas. And this is the understanding, the explanation why in Shmona Esrei the bracha for tshuva comes right after the bracha of das. Bracha atachoni lodem das. God gives me knowledge. God gives me understanding. Bracha Hashem chonin hadas. Hashiveinu bin l'sarasecha. After the blessing that we say God gives us understanding, we say help us do tshuva. What is the connection between the two? The famous Gemara in Megillah and Daf Yud Zayin on the base gives us the order of all the brachas in Shmona Esrei where one follows the other. Our footnote is now saying a svara. Why is the introduction to tshuva das? Baruch Hashem chonin hadas hashiveinu avinu l'sarasecha. So he says, Ki achein sukuka hi hatshuva l'skula miuchedesh shaladas dainu sila kagashmi. Because, as we just explained, you need a new mindset, a new brain processing in order to be able to walk out of the world of senses, open the door and walk into the world of tshuva where you want to go back in time. That is a mental process that is not dependent on your senses. Your senses are what you feel and touch now, and you move into the future. Of course, you have memories of the past, but you cannot undo the past. When you open the doors of tshuva, you're walking in and you want to have a clean slate and undo the past. That requires a new type of brain processing. And therefore, Baruch Atah Hashem chonin hadas. Thank you, Ribono Shel Olam, for giving me this tremendous ability to understand things. And one of the biggest chidushim, one of the biggest new concepts in understanding, Hashiveinu avinu l'sarasecha, help me do tshuva, which requires a whole new form of das. If we move on to the next page, page Bays. At the top of the page, the Ramchal tells us this exact idea. The Ramchal, in the second paragraph of the Ramchal, the Ramchal is dealing with the classic problem, how does tshuva help? You can't undo what you've done. If you, now there are things, you stole money, you can return the money. The person has to still be mochel you for stealing his money. Just returning the money is not enough. So there are things you can return, but there are things, for example, the Ramchal says, a person killed someone. You do tshuva, everything you can do, you're not going to bring him back to life. There are things that we do that you can do the greatest tshuva for, but you're not going to change the physical effect of what you've done. And to that, the Ramchal says the famous words, the second paragraph at the top of the page, the paragraph that begins Omnam, that tshuva works at the end of the fourth line, when a person uproots from in himself the original rotzon, he had a desire, he had a will, he did something because he wanted to. When the tshuva goes so deep into the kishkis that you uproot that original desire and that original will to do the aveira, the Rebbeinu Shalom considers the uprooting of the will inside you. You wish you had never done that, which means you're in the Olam HaTshuva, you're opening the door and trying to go back in time and wish you had never done that. And when you do it sincerely in the kishkis, that you're working your way back in time to the extent a human being is possible, the Rebbeinu Shalom opens the doors of tshuva and considers that akiras hamayis as if you never did what you had done. That still doesn't answer the question what happens to the person you killed. Okay, that's Chodesh Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur issues. But that's what the Ramchal is telling us, that akiras haratzon, when you want to go back in time and you dig deep inside yourself, and it's sincerely you wish, it's so deep, you want to go back in time and uproot not what you've done. Akiras haratzon, you want to go so deep down inside you, you're not working on, I wish I had never done that. You're working on, I wish I had never wanted to do that. The akiras haratzon. So you're working so deep inside yourself. It's not that I wish that I never had done this. I wish I had never wanted to do this. That's a very tough piece of work. So the akiras haratzon opens the doors, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says, I will do the akiras hamaisa. I will uproot the deed retroactively as if you've never done that. Again, and then the Ramchal brings down this concept of a chacham uprooting a neder, an oath or vow, retroactively. Okay, next. In the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, some people say it in different places. Musaf Yom Kippur also. V'chol ma'aminim, the famous piyut V'chol ma'aminim, we all believe. And each paragraph begins V'chol ma'aminim, we all believe. And the paragraph V'chol ma'aminim, it says V'chol ma'aminim shu hoya hova v'yeh. Everyone believes that God was, is, and will be. Havadai Shemo Kain Tilaso. God's name is certain. There's no doubts in his name. Kain Tilaso, and that's his praise. Let's focus for a few minutes on what that means. What are we saying in Musaf Yom Kippur? V'chol ma'aminim shu hoya hova v'yeh. Havadai Shemo Kain Tilaso. We know that the name, God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, stands for Hoya Hova V'yeh. Yud, Hey, Vav Hey. In there are the words Hoya Hova V'yeh. Was, is, and will be. And that's the way we, from our vantage point, have given the Rebbeinu Shalom a name. The Rebbeinu Shalom told Moshe Rabbeinu Har Sinai, one of my names is Yud Kei Vav Kei, one of my names is Ekyeh. And from there we get the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which means Hoya Hova V'yeh. The reason why human beings live in a state of doubt is because, quote unquote, we don't know what's going to be tomorrow. We don't know what's going to be tomorrow. We have a little understanding of what happened yesterday. We don't really know what's going to happen today. And everything should be wonderful from here. And certainly we don't know what's going to be tomorrow. So people live in doubt. And when they have to make decisions, they start thinking about, if I do this, what will happen? What are the ramifications of this? What are the ramifications of that? And so man is always living in a state of doubt. His decision-making process could be based upon his past experiences, his current understanding, and he'll make a decision about going forward. But decision-making is based upon a human beings living in a state of doubt. We don't know what's going to be. We make the best decisions we can based upon the past, the present, and a decision going forward. Man lives in a place called doubt, suffix. The Avodas Shalom is Avadai. He has no doubts. He has the full past, present, and future all in front of him at the same time, whatever that may mean. But that's HaYehovah V'yeh. He is, he was, is, and will be all in 1 second. It's constant. The whole past, the whole present, the whole future. And that's HaYehovah V'yeh. So we say, V'chol ma'aminim shu HaYehovah V'yeh. We all believe that God is in the past, the present, and the future. Havadai Shemo. His name of Yud Kei Vav Kei is Vadai. It's absolute. There's no doubts there if you have the whole past, present, and future in front of you. Therefore, God is a Vadai. And that is his praise, Kain Tilasa. The Lev Simcha points out in the Sefer, we know that Yud Kei Vav Kei, the gematria, the numeric value of HaYehovah of Yud Kei Vav Kei is 26. Yud Kei Vav Kei is 26. And Yud Kei Vav Kei stands for HaYehovah V'yeh. So now let's read this again. V'chol ma'aminim shehu HaYehovah V'yeh. We all believe that God was, is, and will be, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei. And Yud Kei Vav Kei is 26. Havadai Shemo. His name is Vadai. Leif Simcha points out that the gematria, the numeric value of Havadai, is also 26. And that's what we're saying here. We all believe that God is HaYehovah V'yeh, which means Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is 26. Havadai, his name is absolute. There's no doubts in his name. It is sureness. Havadai, and Havadai is also 26. So this is the praise, Kain Tilaso, this is the praise of the Avodas Shalom. He does not live in a place of doubt. He exists in a place where everything is Vadai, because the past, present, and future meld in all the time in one in one area. There's no time zones in God's world. I just note parenthetically, the Sforim talk about the fact that Amalek is the same gematria as suffix. Amalek creates a world of doubt where people are always in doubt and they're never comfortable with their lives. And that's the terror that Amalek attempts to constantly bring to the world, is a state of suffix, a state of chaos, a state of panic. The Avodas Shalom is going to be Mocha Amalek because it's a Zel Umazeh, it's the antithesis of God in this world. The Avodas Shalom is HaYehovah V'yeh, he's Vadai, and Amalek, Lahavdol El Havdalos, is suffix. At the bottom of the page, we all know we have the 13 attributes of Rachamim, which have nothing to do, as we always say, has nothing to do with God's characteristic traits. We don't talk about such things. God is not merciful. God has a tool that he uses that is mercy. God created mercy, and he uses that tool when necessary. Okay, we've had those discussions many times. The Rambam, the Das Tavunos, all this forum. We do not talk about Mitziusai. We don't talk about who God is or his personality trait, because there's no personality traits to talk about. So when we say Hashem, Hashem, Kol Racham V'Chanan, we're saying that God has the following attributes that he uses. They are not characteristic traits. But we know that we say Yud Kei Vav Kei twice before the Shlosh Esrei Midah Shel Rachamim. Why do we say it twice? Question, good question, whether it's, there are 13 attributes here. Is each Yud Kei Vav Kei a separate attribute? Is a question in Tosfos and the Rishon and Rosh Hashanah. At any rate, Yud Gimel Midah Shel Rachamim start with Yud Kei Vav Kei, which means that you're asking the Avodas Shalom, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, HaYehovah V'yeh. Rav Hutner and the Ramchal just told us that to knock on the door of tshuva and open the door of tshuva, you have to be willing to understand that your understanding is going to change. You need to go deep, 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 deep down in yourself, and not just want to uproot what you've done, but you want to uproot that you even wanted ever to do such a thing. Akivas harotz and kivas hamaisa. For that, you need to open a door, and God has to help you enter a new place where your brain is not accustomed to, and that is the world that goes back in time and doesn't recognize a time differential of past, present, and future, so you can get your clean slate. And so the beginning of the 13 attributes of Rachmim is Yud Kei Vav Kei. I call out to Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Hoya Hova V'yeh, where everything is above time and nothing is limited by time, and that becomes the world of tshuva, so I can go back in time. Limafreya, as Rav Hutner says, and the Ramchal says, I can go back retroactively and enter the world of tshuva. We'll begin today a little on page Gimel, the Tfilas Musaf of the part of the Tfilas Musaf of the Kohen Gadol's Avodah. On page Gimel, as I mentioned, this comes from the Nusach Sfard Machzor Ata Konanta Olam Merosh. The Avodah of Yom Kippur in Musaf begins with history of the world. Before we even get to a Kohen Gadol doing any avodah on Yom Kippur, the Paitan wrote a history. You created the world, and on the third line it says, "B'shurcha olam tov avo al v'choshech al pnei sahon." When the English says, perceive that the world was empty and dark, we're talking about the beginning of creation. Gelem kavnischa min ha'adama yotzarta, you created man from the dust of the earth. Val eitz hadas osa pakadata, and you commanded him not to eat from the eitz hadas. Devar chazanach v'niznach me'eden, he violated your word and he ate from the eitz hadas tovara, and he got chased out of Gan Eden. And the Python continues with the history of the world. And then came Noah, and then the Mabul, and then the Rebbeinu Shalom found Avraham Avinu, quote unquote, and from Avraham Avinu came Yitzchak, and from Yitzchak came Yaakov, and from Yaakov came Shevet Levi, and from Levi came a person by the name of Aaron, and Aaron was ultimately selected to be the Kohen Gadol, and that's the I'm summarizing it, but it's a beautiful poem about the history of the world from creation until we get to God's selection of Aaron as being the Kohen Gadol. And now we go to page Daled. The top of page Daled, the third line, in the middle of this paragraph. Torah's Ma'asev Avodas Hayom Shiva Yom Bizvulenu Yilmod. Remember, we mentioned 7 days before Yom Kippur, the first Mishnah in Yuma, 7 days before Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol was taken from his home, and he lived in the Beis Hamikdash for 7 days. And during those 7 days, he was taught how to do the Avodas Yom Kippur. Complicated? As we mentioned, the second Beis Hamikdash, almost every year there was a new Kohen Gadol, because the Kohen Gadol from the previous year had died, because he was usually either a Rasha or not even a Kohen sometimes, because the Kahuna Gedolah was being sold off by the Greeks and later by the Romans. So it says that they took the Kohen Gadol 7 days before, and they taught him the avodah of the Kohen Gadol. Masechta Midos, our beloved diagram 3. Rabbi said, where did they take the Kohen Gadol to live for the 7 days before Yom Kippur? So we go to our diagram, and unfortunately they didn't put a number there. But remember, we learned that there's a Lishkat Ha'etz and a Lishkat Kohen Gadol right near the Lishkat Hagazit. It was called the wood room. We talked about why it was called the wood room. Because it was built out of wood to keep the Kohen Gadol's ego in check. The Beis HaMikdash was beautiful marble floors, and the Heichel gold was beautiful. The Kohen Gadol already has a big title. He's the Kohen Gadol. He already has gold clothing, beautiful. And now we're going to give him a gold room, so his ego is going to get out of control. So we put him in a wood room so that he understands that while he has some nice clothing and he has a nice title, he got to remember to stay both feet down on earth with his ego. So he lives in this wooden room for 7 days before Yom Kippur. Shalot tazuach daitam. And this was on the northern wall of the Azara. And if you remember, we saw the picture. Let's see if we can get the picture here. The diagram 48B, Lishkat Ha'etz. And as you recall, this is the room that had no opening into the Azara. It only had an opening out into the Chayil. And because it had no opening into the Azara, it had no Kedushas Azara. And therefore the Kohen Gadol was able to live in this room. Otherwise he couldn't sit down. If a room has Kedushas Azara, what's the rule? Ein yeshiva ela malchei beis David. You cannot sit in the room except if you're a sign of the Davidic dynasty. A Kohen is not a sign of the Davidic dynasty. So in order for him to be able to live in this room, sit there, relax, lay down, eat, this room had to be completely closed off and have no entryways into the Azara. Its only entry and exit was here into the Chayil, and therefore it didn't have Azara air to it, so to speak, and therefore it didn't have Kedushas Azara. So this is the Lishkat Ha'etz. Remember, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who was the author of Masechta Midah, said there was a Lishkat Ha'etz, and I don't remember what it was used for. Abba Shaul came along and said that it's called the Lishkat Kohen Gadol. This is where the Kohen Gadol live. And remember, we mentioned that this room is also called the Lishkat Parhedrin. Okay, and Parhedrin, it's called Parhedrin because the word Parhedrin was a Greek word that meant, in those days, the yearly ministers. There were ministers in the Greek government who were only appointed for 1 year, and then they were replaced. And this was sort of what was happening in the second Beis HaMikdash. A Kohen Gadol lasted a year, and he was replaced because he usually died because they were Rishoyim. So they named the room Parhedrin. It's a 1-year appointment. So this is the Lishkat Ha'etz, or the Lishkat Kohen Gadol, or the Lishkat Parhedrin. And that's on the northern wall of the Azara, and that's where the Kohen Gadol spent 7 days before Yom Kippur and studied with the Sanhedrin the laws of Yom Kippur. Back to page Dalid, Umazn Alav Shlishi Ushvi'i. And on the third day and on the seventh day, he was there for 7 days. On the third day and on the seventh day, they sprinkled Pora Aduma ash on him to make sure that he was tahor from tumas mes. Maybe he forgot that he came into contact with a mess. Maybe he didn't realize that he came into contact with a tummy mess. We want to make sure the Kohen Gadol is absolutely perfectly ritually pure for the Avodah Yom Kippur. So during the 7 days that he is in the Lishkat Ha'etz, or the Lishkat Kohen Gadol, or the Lishkat Parhedrin, the third day and seventh day, as required by the halacha, they sprinkled paraduma ash on it. Shlume v'ziknei am v'chachmei echav hakohanim tomid yisovuvu. He's always surrounded, not in a bad way. He's always accompanied during these 7 days with chachamim or other kohanim, so that he can become educated in the complexities of Avodas Yom Kippur. Ad bo yom ha'asar, until the 10th day came. Ve'erev Yom HaKippurim Shachris, and here we begin our tiyul with the Kohen Gadol. Ve'erev Yom HaKippurim Shachris. It's 9 Tishrei. It's Erev Yom Kippur in the morning. Mashbiyan oso. They made the Kohen Gadol take an oath. V'misha shikein b'bayis hazeh. in the name of the God who lives in this house, in the name of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Kohen Gadol had to take an oath, Shelo Yashan Dover Mikol Masha Omulai, that he will not do anything on Yom Kippur during the Avodah except that which he was taught. And later we'll see, not today, one of the most famous machlokas, disagreements between the Chachamim and Chazal and Lahavdil, that Stukim, was how you bring the Ketores, that ultimate avoda, so to speak. When the Kohen Gadol entered the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh Kadoshim, he came in with the incense. And there was a machlokes whether you light up the incense outside the Kodesh Kadoshim and enter the Kodesh Kadoshim with the incense already burning, or do you, which is what the Stukim did or wanted to do, or do you walk into the Kodesh Kadoshim and in the Kodesh Kadoshim you light the incense, which is what the Torah tells us to do, Al Pi Chazal and Torah Shebal Peh. And so there were all kinds of things, but that's the main, for us, example. They've taught him all kinds of things for 7 days. You do this, then you do this, and it's the order. It's a very complicated order. We'll see B'lined the Rambam tomorrow. There are 15 different korbanos that the Kohen Gadol has to slaughter. Rav Dafka slaughter, we'll talk about that. But there are 15 different korbanos that the Kohen Gadol is involved in one day. In that one day of Yom Kippur, there are 15 different korbanos, the blood, the sprinkling, busy day. So the order of these korbanos, how you sprinkle the blood, has all been taught to him over the 7 days, and he took a vow. In the name of God who lives in this house, I will not change anything you've taught me. And why did they say this to him? Shem yesh b'li b'tzad minus. Maybe in his heart he's not b'kaivus, which was unfortunate, very prevalent in the second Beis Hamikdash, which we'll see in the Rambam B'lined tomorrow. The second Beis Hamikdash, we have the Tzdukim, and the Tzdukim tried to bring their shtuyot into the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, they made him make this shvur. Now you're going to ask me a question. Well, it's a good question, and we'll deal with it B'lined because a soid should be a soid in how your neshama, the basic function of a neshama. Talk about Rabbeinu Yoina. He's at Stuki. It's at Stuki. He doesn't believe in the oral law. And he's willing to do all kinds of things in the Beis HaMikdash that violate the Torah. He wants to burn the incense outside the Kodesh Kadoshim and bring it in the Kodesh Kadoshim when you're not supposed to do that. But he's willing to do that, and he's willing even to risk his life to go into the Kodesh Kadoshim and die for this crazy idea that he believes in. So we have a very committed Stuki here, assuming that this person is a Stuki. He's a very committed Stuki. So what do? We make him swear that he's not going to change anything we taught him. If he's willing to go against the Rebbeinu Shalom and do that which he was told by the Rebbeinu Shalom not to do and burn the Ketores improperly, why would I believe an oath he takes? So he took an oath. Because he took an oath, therefore he now became a Goysa Tzaddik. He's at Stuki. He's willing to burn the incense on Yom Kippur improperly. But if he promises not to do it, then I can trust him. Why do I trust him? He became a tzaddik because he took an oath. He'll break his promise. Okay, good kash. But we make this Kohen Gadol take an oath. What you've taught me for the last 7 days, I won't change anything that you taught me. And the reason they make him make the oath, because maybe he's a tzduki. Hu poirish uboicha al shechashadu. The Kohen Gadol then leaves or goes to a corner and begins crying. Why did he cry? Because they suggested that he's a tzduki. They just made him swear that he's not going to change anything in the Avodas Yom Kippur. Why did they make him take the oath? Because they think he's a tzduki. They're choshid that he's a tzduki. So he would go off and cry that you're choshid, I'm a tzduki. V'hein parshinu bochim, and the members, the Talmidei Chachamim who made him make this oath, they also go off in a corner and they cry, shechashdu l'mi shemais of stubin, because they had to be choshid, a person who they don't know if he's a tzduki or not, that's in his heart. They don't know, but they have to do this process. They must make him make a shvuah. Again, how does the shvuah help? Maybe we'll take a look at that. But they had to do this. But then they went off into a corner and cried because they were choshid a person. It could be that they were choshid a person who was a complete tzaddik. They don't know. So they cried, and he cried. And as we know, the Gemara in Shabbos says, "A choshid b'kshem like a bagufay." If a person is choshid in a person that's perfectly kosher for no reason, chshad, then chas v'shalom, person is punished. So he's crying because they were choshid him. They're crying because they had to be choshid him. Shemein bli b'lei klum v'oymim loi. And then they say to him, take a look in front before you're going on Yom Kippur. Where are you entering? You're going to be going into a place that's fire, flame, and ablaze. The nation relies on you, and through you we will get a forgiveness. Okay, so we're going to do one more paragraph so we can begin our tiyul. Tzivahu v'hirgiluhu ad bo yom ha'asa. They commanded him and they taught him until the 10th day. Even on the 9th day. The 9th day he was still learning. What was he learning on the 9th day? Ve'erev Yom Kippur Shachris. Erev Yom Kippur, the 9th day of Tishrei in the morning. They brought him to the eastern gate. Abaisai, where's the eastern gate? Remember, we don't focus on the Ezras Noshim. We're focusing on the Azorah. What's the Shar Mizrach? It's the Shar Mizrach. The eastern gate into the Azorah is Shar Nicanor. It's called Shar Mizrach. And they brought him to this Shar Mizrach, and this is where he stood on the 9th day of Tishrei in the morning. And why did they bring him here? So we are taught, by the way, all this is poetry that comes from the Mishnayos and the Gemara and Yuma, all summarized in a poem. Umavir Lafanov, and as he's standing at the eastern gate, they brought in front of him Purim, bulls, elim, rams. Let's see what if I got the animals right. Bulls, okay, rams, kvasim, sheep, kadesh makiv rokel bavoda. So he would recognize them and be familiar with the avoda. So it sounds pretty simple. People can tell the difference between a bull, a ram. I don't know, if that's that simple for us. But in those days, people knew the difference between a bull, a ram, and a sheep. But because of the complexities of the Avodah Yom Kippur and the need by which the Avodah was done quickly on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol had to become very familiar with bull, ram, sheep. Bull, ram, sheep. Which bull, which ram, which sheep. So they gave him a zoological lesson. They took him to Shar Nicanor and they showed him. Take a look at this carefully. This is a bull. Take a look at this carefully. This is a ram. Take a look at this carefully. This is a sheep. So he became familiarized with bull, ram, sheep, which he's going to have to know on Yom Kippur. And this was done at our Shar Nicanor in diagram number 3. And that's where we'll end for today. We're at Shar Nicanor on the 9th day of Tishrei. And the Kohen Gadol has been taught the difference between a bull, a ram, and a sheep.